Welcome to another video in the series about the C7000 compiler. This video is an overview of the header files that are specific to the compiler. My name is George Mock and I'm your guide. An installation of the compiler includes the standard runtime support header files such as standardlib.h, string.h, and so on. But if you go look, you'll see there are yet other header files that come with the compiler, and they have names like c7x.h, c7x_scalable.h, and so on. What is the purpose of those files? That's what this video is about. For this video, I have separated the C7X header files into two categories. I call the categories user-facing and implementation details. As for the user-facing header files, there are two of them. Their names are c7x.h and c7x_scalable.h. And you do directly include these header files in your code, thus the term user-facing. If you go look, you'll see there are several more header files, and these are their names, and I will be mentioning them at parts in this video, but you never directly include these in your code because they are included by the header file c7x.h. The term intrinsic is important in this video, so I'd like to define it. An intrinsic is for using some feature of the C7000 CPU that is difficult or impossible to represent in C and C++. With regard to the syntax and the behavior, an intrinsic acts the same as a function call. But the code generated for an intrinsic does not call a function. Instead, a sequence of one or more instructions is generated. Here's an example. The intrinsic is in bold. It's called __abs. Takes an input, returns a result, just like a function call. But this particular one is implemented with an instruction called VABSW. Next, I review what appears in the header file c7x.h. Several intrinsics and types appear here. These first two are directly in c7x.h. For the rest of them, I show the header file that contains those intrinsics or types. But remember that even though you see these header file names here, the header file you include in your source code is c7x.h. So the first one's high-level overloaded intrinsics. These are for operations for which multiple scalar and vector types apply. And I will give some more details about that. The second one is intrinsics for special load and store instructions. The C7000 ISA supports several load and store operations that cannot be leveraged using simple C and C++ operators. Instead, an overloaded intrinsic is provided for those operations. The next one is direct mapped intrinsics. These are intrinsics provided to facilitate a direct map between an intrinsic and the corresponding C7000 instruction. This is followed by lookup table and histogram intrinsics. These are used to configure and use the C7000 lookup table and histogram features. This is followed by the matrix multiply intrinsics. These are used to configure and use the matrix multiply accelerator. The streaming engine and streaming address generator intrinsics and types and utilities appear in the header file c7x.strm.h. There's a few videos that cover the streaming engine and streaming address generator, and that's where that is. Those things are all detailed there. Control registers, there are several, actually a large number of control registers available on the C7000 CPU. And the way this works from the compiler's perspective is it's sort of like the compiler predefines them as global variables, and then declarations for those variables appear in these header files, and then you use them in your code in a manner very similar to global variables. Here are some details regarding high-level overloaded intrinsics. These are operations for which multiple scalar and vector types apply. When I say they're overloaded, what I mean is even though the types vary, the name of the intrinsic is the same. To make this a little more clear, here are some lines copied from C7x.h. They're all about the intrinsic abs, okay? For the moment, please ignore this bit about OVBIF. It's adding attributes to it. It's not relevant to the discussion at the moment. What I want you to notice is how the types are changing, but the intrinsic name is remaining the same. And this type right here, __ char2, that says it's a vector of 2 char. And that's a vector of 3 char, and same for short and short 3, okay? Next, I review the contents of the header file C7x scalable.h, which defines types and utilities used in scalable vectors. This is discussed in detail in the video titled Scalable Vectors, but as a brief review here, this is a way to create vectors that automatically scale to the perfect size for the variant of the C7000 CPU you're building for. I want to close this video with 2 references. The first one is to this web address here. It's a little bit long, a little bit too much to type in, so what I recommend you do instead is search the internet for C7000 compiler. I've tried this search with a few different search engines, and I always get this web address as the first result. But however you get here, you're at the homepage for the C7000 compiler. It's where you can download the compiler, access the manuals, and more details like that. The second reference is to e2e.ti.com. This is for customer questions on any TI product, including the C7000 compiler. If your question is related to the compiler, it will be answered by me. Thank you for watching this video in the series about the C7000 compiler.